Well, hello and good evening, everybody, and welcome back to Aquarius Rising Africa 2. I'm delighted to have back with me again, Elle, and we're going to be joined shortly, hopefully by Amanda Bass. She's running a bit late today, but we needed to get our recording on because I've got to get off at a certain time as well. So Amanda will hopefully be joining us later, where we'll be hearing her valuable input on this topic as well. So for those of you who haven't been introduced to Elle yet, and this is a nom de plume, if you will, or we just call her Elle because, and we're not showing you her face, and we're doing a voiceover because it's for her protection. So if you guys haven't seen the previous interview with her, I really implore you to please watch that. Part 1 with Elle and Amanda Bass, where Elle is a high-level part of the Hitler Project, which was literally DNA splicing, putting together. Crazy what these Lumies do. And Elle is a product of that. So she is high up in the royal bloodlines, and in fact has all of the 13 bloodlines spliced into her. She grew up in South Africa, had a horrific childhood, and I'm just so grateful that she is joining us here on Aquarius Rising Africa to tell us her story. Last time we spoke to her, she explained how the splicing works. So that's why I say, if you guys haven't seen that yet, please go and watch that, because we're going to do a couple of interviews with her, and the one will follow up from the other. So the first one is really her explaining the splicing and how it works. So Elle, welcome back. Thank you so much for joining me again today. How are you?
Thank you, Shanti. I am well. It's hot here where I stay.
Well, I'm glad you're getting hot because it's seriously chilly here, honey. Winter, she's arrived. Anyway, I see Amanda has just joined us as well. So I'm very happy to have you back with us, Elle. Thank you so much for joining us again. You really opened up a lot of our eyes last week. Hello, Amanda. You opened up our eyes a lot last time and explaining to us how the splicing of the DNA works. So what I'd like to do, just because for me, and I'm sure I don't speak only for myself, this is such a complex, layered process and so much happening simultaneously that I'm pretty sure we're only scratching the surface of whatever has actually occurred. But what I'd like to ask you to do for us today is, now that we've understood how the splicing works and how that happened with you, and I know we also spoke at the end of our last interview just on a little bit of your childhood, when you were born, how you were born, etc., etc. So maybe you can start there for us this week, and we could discuss some of the experiences you had as a child, maybe even going into your teenage years if we have the time. So maybe if you could do that, that'd be amazing. And just to give us an idea of what your life looked like. Yeah. And you grew up in South Africa, but I know you were zooming all over the place and met with everyone that's pretty much high level. But before we move on to you, I'll just say hello, Amanda. So
Hi.
good to see you. Lovely to have you back with us. How are you?
Good. Thank you. You doing well?
Yes, absolutely.
Good.
Doing well. But as you can see, we live in the same area, Amanda and myself, and it's getting chilly. Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's
so
right.
Great. Yeah, thank you for joining us as well. I know your time is also so precious and you're such a busy lady. For those of you as well, Amanda Bass is South Africa's expert on DID, SRA, works with so many people that have been MK Ultra'd, coming out of that, been in the system, incredible stories. So really good to have you and grateful to have you as a support here for us with Elle as well. And so I would like to just, Amanda, I don't know, is there something you'd like to start off with before we move on to Elle? Just something you'd like to say about
No,
this
I'm
topic?
excited to hear and to journey along. So it's great. It's great. Really super that it's coming from our own ground.
Absolutely.
Very
Isn't
good.
that so exciting? And Al, I want to really just say such a special thank you to you for that, because, you know, even though our channel just got struck a couple of weeks ago, and we've already had 2 strikes on this channel, they've got their BDI on us now, you know. But anyway, I don't know what I was going to say, but so I'm going to hand over to you. I lost track of what I was saying. So without any further ado, Al, welcome. Thank you so much. And over to you.
Thank you, Shanti, and thank you, Amanda. Hi.
Hey.
I'm not sure where to start because it's like a lot of information. Maybe to just wrap up where we ended off the other time. I kind of grew up or were born in South Africa, but I was spliced as part of the Hitler project that started in 1944. So just give you an idea, it's basically when you are selected by certain bloodlines, generational bloodlines, normally multi-generational, for a specific purpose. And I was one of those that were selected. My embryo of my bloodline were pre-decided before my conception and birth. So long story short, all of that happened, and I explain it more in detail, and I can, if there's a request, I can explain it again. But to wrap it up just quickly is that I went in an embryonic state for a couple of decades and birthed a few decades later in South Africa, placed in South Africa strategically.
What was the strategy there? What, why specifically were you placed in South Africa?
What I've learned over the time, that's just from my experience and from my knowing, is that I've been linked by the 13 bloodlines to different countries, and also to link the different countries. In my experience, survivors are often placed in specific countries for specific reasons. And South Africa are very high up in witchcraft and in the occult, and not just nationally, but globally, and links up with many other countries, like, for instance, US, Germany, Israel, and in the spiritual realm. So, and also, so I've been placed in South Africa, but within my first 5 years or so, and even afterwards, but within the first 5 years, I've traveled all over kind of. Within less than 5 years, I've been to Israel, Germany, US, the UK, Antarctica, to just name but a few, and for a lot of experimentation, tortures, rituals, and also high-level rituals, which involved inaugurations and trafficking as well. I'm not a trafficking survivor, but I have been exposed to it as part of certain programming.
What does that mean? When you say you're not a trafficking survivor, but you have been part of it as part of specific programming, what does that mean?
They wanted to instill certain programming in me. It was used as a means for torture, but it was also linking me up to certain elite and officials, both nationally and in various different countries. So they used that as a means. So it was also very, I have to choose my words carefully how I describe it. It's quite a horrific means of programming someone and to get them to split and to get obedience. So if you want to get total control, I mean, it wasn't just trafficking via your normal sex trafficking, if I can say it like that with inverted commas. It was snuff porn. So it was live snuff porn that they did. And it usually took place in embassies. And they wanted to establish certain program within me as a young child from approximately age 4 that started. And to maintain control over me. Because it's very, very horrific for those who are who know about snuff porn. It's not things that one go and look for. It's those things that one stay away from, but it's a very extreme form of to get control over whoever you are working with, if it's a survivor, and they do it on purpose.
So were you forced to watch them do snuff porn?
Yes.
On children?
No, the people that were used in this, I will call them a ritual, for lack of another word. It was all female women. Well, yeah, it was all adult women, young women, but all of them were about 20. And I was 4 years old the first time, and it always happened in embassies or state homes. And there were guards, various guards, varying from Russian guards to US guards or German, mostly Russian and US guards. And what they did is I had a specific handler there. I do remember his handler name, and I actually recently found out that that handler was is a Nephilim as well. I were not aware of that until very recently. And so but what they did is basically I had to watch. The person never were alive afterwards. And if I showed any emotion in the beginning, they kept my eyes open with little sticks or pins. And if you showed any emotion, there were quite severe punishment afterwards. So,
Phew.
basically, to what they accomplished with that initially, the base programming was what they call porcelain doll programming, is that you eventually feel like like a doll with no emotions, nothing inside. And also,
I'm
then you
sure
learn
about that.
emotions. It's a form of control, but also it actually enhances the dissociation eventually.
Sure. Amanda, what do you say about
Ashri.
that? Sorry, that's quite a story. I mean, what's your experience with stuff like that?
Yeah, no, we've bumped into that too. Yeah, that does happen. Yeah, we had this one girl that she never had a name. She was a number. And she was 18, and she was actually moved from in the sex trafficking ring. She was just moved from house to house to house, and that's what they did. It was part of the programming. And then when she turned 18, they sacrificed a girl and gave her her driver's license, her everything that was her ID became hers. and then she became this identity. She got a name for the first time, but it was this dead girl's name. And yeah, from there, you know, she thought she could flee away, get away from them, and they made her believe she's running and she's getting away from them, but she just ran into the arms of the next, you know, abuser. So yeah, it's what they do.
Wow. Horrendous. Sure. So I shudder to ask, and I'm sure you probably can't talk about where these embassies are, which embassies are. I mean, I'm sure that would be not something that you would be able to share at this point, right?
I can broadly give you some idea and add to what Amanda said as well. Is it's interesting that she said that, is because the name I were given at that point was X. And it's very significant in the ritual context in the occult, because it's part of what they use as a symbol, which is the X marks the spot, which indicates sexual rituals, sexual rapes and such. So I were made like an object for that. So yeah, some of the places I remember very well was in South Africa. Also overseas, but places I can mention in South Africa. I can't identify, I can identify them all, but I can't name them all. One of them is the Parliament, the Deutsches Konsulat, German embassy, other state homes, which I can't name for specific reasons, but it's linked to the royals. And then other places is a military base that is in Cape Town specifically, and then overseas, US. UK.
I don't know why, and I'm sorry, I just have to say this. I just see the castle in front of me. So I'm gonna think, wow. Okay, sorry, carry on.
Yeah, one of our main military bases in South Africa is in Cape Town. And the rituals take place underground. One of the other places, there's also some chapels, churches that are used in Cape Town all over the world, but in Cape Town specifically, not very close to, in proximity to the other places that I've mentioned, specifically Roman Catholic chapels. All of them have got underground places where the rituals took place. Certain ceremonies are being held.
Are you saying, and I know just if I just go back to our interviews with Jesse in the beginning as well, one thing Jesse spoke about a lot was the Catholic Church being involved. Now, I know that's not the only church, and also let's please just put it out there that not all Catholic Church, not all Catholic priests or whatever are doing this dodgy stuff, but we have to realize there's a large portion of churches, religion that has been corrupted and infiltrated. So I've heard a lot of stories about the NG Church here, the NG Kerk, yeah, in South Africa as well. I mean, I've spoken with people that have had horrible things happen within the churches as well. So would you say that the Catholic Church is as active as the NG Church with underground activities, shall we call it that? And which other churches, according to your knowledge, and maybe organizations and things are involved here in this country?
Well, the Dutch Reformed Church, like you say, the NG Church, is very involved. we got a main, the head organization that oversees all the churches in South Africa. So I cannot really say that one church is more involved than other, but I know with the training of theological students, when they get to a certain year, I think it is their 5th or their 6th year, then they have to get initiated into the Freemasons. So the Dutch Reform plays quite a big role, but I don't also, at the same time saying so, I don't want to say that all Dutch Reformed. It is just because of South Africa's history and involvement with the Broederbond and the leading to the Freemasons and all of that, that people join it thinking that it's a high-ranking society that does good, but actually they are being deceived by joining that, and only too late find it out, and then it's very difficult for them to get out. So yes, all churches are involved. The majority of churches in the world are being used for rituals. Some churches are aware and are directly involved, the pastors as well, or ministers or chaplains, whatever you want to call them. And that's nationally and globally. But some of the pastors or ministers are not aware that their churches are being used. So I can't really say that there's one church that specifically stand out, though overseas in Europe, the Vatican definitely stands out for me. It's quite a hot spot where they take Maraki survivors to, and where I've been taken to as well quite a lot.
Can you tell us a little bit about the rituals that you were involved in or that you experienced? Maybe you were an spectator of stuff that maybe happened here, or that you care to share?
I can start with the ritual that I remember right after birth. I remember in the previous interview I mentioned about the ritual that took place in Israel after birth, where they did a mocking ceremony of another mock birthing with ritual with me. After that, they were taken back to South Africa. And
what is a mocking ceremony? What is a mocking ceremony?
Mocking what God, they mock everything that God put in place. Satan cannot create, and I mean, he cannot birth children, babies. And what they did is they did another birthing ceremony on me after I was already free. I was already birthed by a woman. So he reproduced that process, and then afterwards I was taken back to the military base in Cape Town and initiated. It was not very long after that, a few months after that, and dedicated in South Africa specifically.
Wow.
I can't remember now if I missed some of your question.
No, that was fine. And let's talk about some of the rituals just as you went on. I was just wanting to find out about some of the rituals from your perspective, your experience rather, what you saw, maybe you were involved in, that you could share with us or the viewers.
I can share some. There is just so many, Shanti, that it's totally impossible to share them all. It will take
Sure.
all three of our lifetimes together times some more to do that. But to give you an idea, I've been exposed to rituals since before birth, and the rituals continued in the womb, and then after I was born, it just continued. anything goes within the hierarchy I were brought up within the project. That meant satanic ritual abuse as frequent as possible. And in my front life or my cover life at home, they were also abused throughout. Physical abuse, sexual abuse, and it continued all the time. So to give you an idea of some of the things I were exposed to, I don't want to be too graphic. I know it's triggers for other survivors, but with SRA, if you think of any type of abuse, your worst nightmare, physical abuse, sexual abuse, tortures, demons that rape one, bestiality, it is mock communions, tortures, being hung upside down on crosses. That my first experience of that, being hung upside down on a cross was new. And the first inauguration ceremony ritual that I also were present at were at age 2. And a lot of sexual orgies take place there. And they do tortures with the children present there as well. And I were part of that as well. So yeah, so a lot of sexual, they focus heavily on sexual abuse, very perverted, very brutal sexual abuse. The Nephilim also plays quite a big part in that. And that's brutality to another extent, which is very hard to explain. So
yeah, I think it's that pushing it to the extreme. Wouldn't that be also, you know, and the more blood they get, isn't that also how they gain their strength through the demons? Because obviously the demonic energies require blood. So the more pain and the more suffering and the more blood they can draw from another, that would strengthen them, right?
Yes, that's correct. Satan is all about blood, blood sacrifice. And they believe the more innocent the person, the younger, the more pure the person, the stronger the power and entities that they can get and that they get into them. And also, obviously, I mean, they at the same time mock the blood of Jesus Christ, where he died for us on the cross. So everything that he does is a mockery of what Jesus did. And absolute defilement and brutality in the most perverse forms and the most extreme forms, where people are also, sorry, it's impossible to share this without being graphic, but people being torn apart by demons, not just by demons, but also by Nephilim, as well as by the certain human, that they are so possessed, they totally sold out to Satan. So that's part of the things that I've witnessed as well. And also they do that with us survivors as well, depending on how much they want to input into you via abuse and torture. I've had experiences of that as well. But it's once again a form of control where they try to instill in you that, you know, they are in control and that you won't speak up. And then also there's a lot of bloodshed. Very brutal. It's something that you can't unsee again, ever. It gets better with time, but it's one of those things that you can't unsee.
Yes, I think, you know, that's what I'm thinking, you know, again, you remind me somehow of, you know, what Jessie was speaking about also, you know, just in terms of, because she refused to partake in the killing when she was a child. her training partner needed to do that, but they therefore then made the victims suffer even more, and made the killings even that much more brutal, you know. And if she dared to flinch or look away, then the problems were even bigger for the other person, you know. It's just so hectic, man. Wow. That's just crazy.
I can add to that, because the first time I was forced into a situation like that, and I never thought I would actually admit that openly in public, nevertheless to someone else. But I was only 3 years old, and I was not in a position where you can refuse. You have no choice.
Absolutely.
And sorry for the viewers, this is graphic, but I'm going to share it. But what they did with me as a 3-year-old, and that is just one of many rituals that they did with me, is there was this very huge guy. You know, as a child, they're all huge, but some of them are bigger when they use the Nephilim. But he was sodomizing at the same time, holding a dagger in my hand, with his one hand over that. But because I was tiny enough that he could hold me with one hand and with the other hand. And so, to answer one of your questions, we asked what I had to go through and some of the rituals I saw and had to go through myself. That's one of the others. And one of the things that they also love instilling in survivors at those times especially is they would say, we would not hurt that baby if you are very good and you just do as we say. And also at the same time, they tell you that if you do say, you're going to land up in jail because you hurt the baby. And so what they instill in you is double binds. So when you start remembering and speaking up or want to, all these conflicting things is going off in your brain, like what you guys spoke on not very long ago about the Hegelian dialect. All this conflict is super. It's in one's mind, is because you cannot undo that, and you really do think that you're going to end up in jail. But you didn't make that choice to do that at 3 years old. But still, it's part of my reality, which I had to process and deal with. But I must say there's only basically one person, and that's been Amanda, who I actually did share that with very long ago.
Thank you for sharing that with us and the viewers. I know that is not an easy thing to do. I must say, I absolutely take my hat off. I mean, I sit here and I listen to you, and in my mind, I have no idea how somebody, a little child's mind, can even begin to wrap itself around all these things. And of course, that's when the DID happens. But still, you know, having to experience it in the moment and go through it, and I'll still come out the way that you have, you know, loving, gentle, kind, a beautiful human. It's such a testament to your character. So thank you for what you're sharing and what you're telling us. It's quite hectic, but I think, as I said, this is information that I do believe we need to know. You would have dealt with some pretty high level people then, right? Who you would have obviously had to interact with for whatever reasons over time. Can you tell us anything about that?
Yes, I have to be careful how I answer your question.
It's not a trick question. Or actually it is.
I dealt with various royals one of the main people I were introduced to since birth was various royals, and Joseph Mengele, and other royals. I'm not ready to name them by their names, but there were multiple royals involved. And then also Nephilim, and also Pope John Paul. I can name him. He is not alive anymore. That was Pope John Paul II from the Vatican. And another person I can name is, we would refer to her as Miss H for now.
Miss H.
H, yes, or Miss H,
Yeah.
for lack of not
Well, she's
descriptive names.
Yeah. Well, that particular one I know has been around a lot. Yeah. Wow.
And some local parliamentary or cabinet members on presidential level.
In South Africa?
South African, yes. And yes, I can't name their names. It would give away my identity, but yes, more people are involved than what they are not involved, especially in our South African parliament. And they're directly connected with other countries as well, and with our royal hierarchy as well.
That would make sense, since we are descendants of particularly the British, which obviously would be the royals. And, you know, when you look at the Germans as well, I mean, the Nazism in South Africa, really the the National Party in those days was all about that anyway. It's horrifying to think that our ministers all along have been as active in the system as what the rest of the world's leaders have been, right? Isn't that insane? I mean, yeah, we think we're this little country in the middle of nowhere. Everyone sees us as this little non-existent place that really is nothing to be concerned with. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, I think we're knowing more and more now just how important South Africa is in this puzzle, or Africa as a whole, actually.
Yeah, South Africa in specific is a very hot spot for witchcraft.
I wanted to ask you about that. Why specifically is South Africa, or Africa, okay, but as you say, specifically South Africa, such a hot spot for witchcraft?
Well, I'm going to answer it according to my own understanding, and you ladies are welcome to correct me, Amanda, because it relates to spiritual mapping, but there's other reasons as well. In the spiritual mapping context, for instance, Cape Town is the gateway to South Africa, and South Africa is a gateway to one of the gateways to the rest of the world. And physically, or geographically, a lot of survivors from the US specifically have been sent to South Africa. And that's more your older survivors that's currently in the early 70s and late 60s, but specifically early 70s, have been sent to South Africa under the Red Cross to come and get training under witchcraft and spells. And they've been sent specifically to the Red Cross in the Gauteng province, and also to specific African countries to learn more about witchcraft. And then they were going back, and they were also part of, some of them, I know about 2, who were part of the Hitler Project as well, that was sent to South Africa that I personally know of. Others were just they were programmers under Hitler and Mengele, and were sent as part of their training to South Africa for a period of time, and specifically to African countries, but more to South Africa. That was the main focus. So that started already when Hitler was still alive.
Amanda, what's your take on that? Why specifically would South Africa be? I mean, I understand obviously we've got our witch doctors and things doing hocus pocus and very powerful African magic. I get that. It's not so much about the people that are doing it. They need to harness the energy with which to do it. So I'm asking from that angle, why specifically do you think South Africa is so heavily connected with the dark force?
Well, you know, we've got all the minerals and the gold, diamonds. So there's a lot of money here. So it's like the safe for the New World Order. And they've been collecting the gold for a long, long time. You know, we've worked with mine captains. So those guys that actually go underground, and then the minute they find a big gold hit, you know, when they blast and there's a big, they can see a room full of gold, they've got to report it immediately and to the white collars upstairs, you know, up above ground. And then immediately that place is shut down. And the next day they start playing with the gold price. So you've got the gold, you've got the money, the finances. They need finances to finance what they're doing. They pay the programmers a lot of money. The other connection is the fact that South Africa and Germany have been working very closely together for a long, long time. You know, our whole apartheid is German. That's the Aryan race.
Yeah.
And
that's
so
supremacy, white supremacy. Yeah.
That's it. You know, believing that we are actually demigods.
Yeah.
That we are half human, half gods, because that's what Hitler was looking for. He was after this whole Nephilim secret and wanted to know what was Nimrod's secret. What changed him from being a normal human being into a demigod? Because that's what the Bible says, that he used to be. In the beginning, he was a human, but then he changed and he became a Gibborim, and a Gibborim is a Nephilim. So he became a half human, half God. And that was the secret that he's been looking for all these years. So Hitler was very, very connected. And then the Third Reich ended at the end of Second World War, but South Africa became the Fourth Reich.
Yeah.
And so those doctors who had been trained were sent to South Africa. You know, some of them came here because it had to continue. The Fourth Reich had to continue. And also Namibia, which was Southwest Africa at that stage. And that's why there's a lot of German speaking you know, in Namibia, because the roots of German, you know, so there was a lot of our South Africans joined, with the Germans. And so there was a lot of, they actually fetched the flame, you know, the flame that Hitler got, the Olympic flame, which is the Zeus flame. Roby Leibrand, which was a South African guy, in 1936 went to Germany and he went to fetch that flame. And that flame is the flame that's still burning to this day in the Voortrekker Monument. And so you've got the Voortrekker Monument in South Africa, and you've got the mother of the Voortrekker Monument in Leipzig in Germany.
Wow.
So they both war memorials. And this whole thing is blood. It's the whole thing to feed the globalists and the New World Order. They need blood. And so the First World War and the Second World War, and it was man's greed. that they actually started it because they wanted the blood. And so
Yes.
that's why every year they do a poppy ceremony by laying wreaths of poppies. But it's also got to do with the drugs and the drug wars with
Yeah.
the East, you know. So yeah, there's a lot of connection with South Africa. And of course, the bloodline, you know, if you look at how many South Africans have got German bloodlines.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, it's the same spirit that ruled in Germany, ruled in South Africa, and then we became apartheid. So they created this same monster with,
Yeah.
but this time South Africa being a very religious country, they would, you know, they would enforce the whole Aryan race upon the people, and they would, you know, enforce the laws with the Bible under their arm. And so they introduced a white God, a white Jesus, which is the Aryan race. We are better than. And
Yeah.
you know, everything else that we know about apartheid, how we wouldn't give them equal education, you know, all that kind of stuff was so evil. It was so demonic. It was not God at all. And so the God that was introduced in South Africa wasn't the God of the Bible, because the God of the Bible doesn't put people into chains.
Yeah.
But
exactly.
apartheid's God did.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
yeah, there's a lot of stuff, you know. So I've traveled to Germany backwards and forwards for the last 25 years, and started digging at the roots of apartheid, and then hit the Nazi roots. And so, you know, I did a lot of work in Germany because I tried to find the answers to release South Africa, you know, of all the curses and the stuff that's come onto us. So yeah, Germany was key.
Wow. Wow. Very, very interesting.
Yeah.
Ladies, sadly, our time is up. I know we've had to cut it, we've had to wrap it up a little bit earlier than usual. But I want to say thank you so much, Al, again, for sharing your story and your experiences. I have no doubt must be a bit of a challenge to express some of what you're expressing. But thank you for doing that, and thank you for sharing your knowledge with our viewers out there. Again, I always say knowledge is power. So when we are able to embrace that and actually feel with people like yourself what you've gone through, you know, extend our compassion and understanding and just love, and you know, thank you for that. So I look forward to having you back again. We're not finished yet. We'll let you know when we'll be back. Is there anything you ladies would like to wrap up with before we end off? Amanda, anything from you you'd just like to say in closing?
Yeah, I'm just super excited to have a voice coming from our country, and basically joining in with the other voices all over the world to show you that this has been a global plan for many years, you know, and they've worked very, very meticulously. The army of Satan is really a very organized, well oiled army, and we mustn't underestimate what they're up to. So it's just super exciting, Chantal, the fact that you are you know, allowing this and putting this out there. I think it's so important for people to hear and to understand what's been going on under our noses, in our faces, and we didn't know. So, you know, the fact that the church there isn't a church that's not infiltrated. I have not met a church that hasn't been infiltrated. So it's very, very real. Yeah, it's very real.
It's so true. Everything.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So we just honor every survivor that's prepared to speak up.
This is very true, indeed. I love
Yeah.
that. Thank you, Amanda. Oh, is there anything from you just before we in closing?
I just want to say thank you to you as well and to Amanda as well for this time and to be able to be a voice, to voice myself too. And yes, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Very brave. We appreciate you so much. So, ladies and gents, guys and girls, thank you so much for watching another episode of Aquarius Rising Africa 2. I just want to let you guys know, and I think I mentioned in the beginning again, that we're going to be putting most of our stuff on Rumble now because we've had a couple of strikes, again, on the new channel as well. So they've obviously got their little beady eyes all over us, which is fine. So we're going to be migrating over to Rumble as well, but we'll let you know as and when we do it. So in the meantime, thank you so much for watching us. Take good care of yourselves. God bless you all. Stay cool, stay kind, stay connected. Thank you so much. Look forward to seeing you very soon. Bye-bye.